Frak this podcast, come and listen to us talk about Battlestar Galactica. It's a show that we're talking about. Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak this podcast. I can say words good, well, things said, articulation. And I am your wondrous host, Jesse Gender, and I am joined as always by...
It's Vera! I never remember how to spell wondrous, whether the E's in there or not, whether it's wondrous or wondrous.
I think it does have the E, but now...
I don't know. I'm writing it with the E, but I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. If you did misspell it, but I used it before to spell it differently. Yes.
No. We have established previously that derivations of something you already did doesn't mean you can use the same thing again. Derivation.
I agree. But if you fuck up the spelling, I think I get a point.
No.
Yes. Get in the comments, listeners. Get in the comments.
No. If we're gonna get in the comments, how about we get in the comments and bully Jesse for just as much over not realizing the term Butterfinger existed before the candy.
They already are in the comments about
as
that.
She bullied me about Blinded by the Light.
You know, they already are in the comments about
good.
That, all right,
we'll talk about it in a
second.
Bitch.
Yeah. Bully Vera, listeners. Bully Vera.
I had my turn.
I know, and now it's your turn again.
Oh no.
Well, I would ask you how you're doing, but I know we were talking before we turned on the camera, so I won't. So I will say.
Well, I mean, I did have a show over the weekend. At the Trans Day of Visibility show.
Oh yeah.
On Thursdays, third time they've done that. It is truly an all trans show. The producer, the stage cat, the host, the photographer, like every performer. It's an all trans show, and it's I'm glad that they're keeping it going. I was gonna say it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, but it's also very emotionally draining because like I had one of the more upbeat numbers, and there was still some anger in it. But like there's definitely venting of some strong feelings during that show.
Oh, that's very funny.
Although actually the funniest thing might be it's started to perpetuate itself because we had performers in it who are like, yeah, I started looking into performing after seeing the first one of these, and like they inspired like another group of people who like started performing this one. I'm like, I'm not sure it's full on egg cracking because most of these people knew that they were trans, but it was like inspiring performing. So
further cracking of the egg. You know, it's just like if you've cracked the egg is cracked. You're just getting rid of some of the
shell. The egg's already cracked, and now we're going to make the world's most fabulous omelet.
Yes,
that's what's happened.
There we go. To extend the metaphor way too far. No, it's just very funny because that was similar. I had a similar conversation this weekend. I was at WonderCon for listeners, which is a convention that happens here in Anaheim. It was the first time I'd ever been to it. And I ran into an editor for this anthology that I'm going to be a part of. There's a comic book anthology that's going to be coming out sometime next year. I'll give more news on it as that comes out. But we were just talking about it, and it's an anthology about propaganda. And so they were talking about how they're going to be doing promotion for it and everything. And they said, we'll probably use your comic in there the most to sort of promote it because you'll probably be one of the bigger names in it.
I was going to say, you're a comparative celebrity now.
Yeah, at least by comparison to other folks in there. And I just said, just use my deeply depressing story because it's about Nazis. Mine's about Nazis because I'm talking about Nazi propaganda towards trans people and other things, and Weimar Germany and how they treated trans people and everything. So I'm like, that'll be a great one. That's the one you want to use to promote. And so like, it's a book about propaganda. All of them, and it's a nonfiction book about propaganda. Almost all of them are depressing, Jesse. and they were like, I'm literally writing a story in this anthology, which I usually don't do, to help give something funny as part part of this book. I'm excited for the book. It's the first comic I read, but it kind of reminded me. It's like, yeah, no, everything's depressing in that now, right now. So shut up. But on a positive note, I did have at WonderCon, the reason I went for the first time was there was a screening and a panel for the short film that I was the producer, assistant director, and editor for long way, that was directed by Tilly and Susan. Toozy is a fun ship name. Tilly and Susan Bridges, which was a trans sci-fi time travel story that is currently going out to festivals.
So much trans sci-fi.
Yeah, very much trans sci-fi. So it's currently going out to festivals. It's not available yet for listeners, but catch it at a festival, support it at a festival, and also it will be online at some point within the next year or two once our festival run is over. But it was really nice to do a con with them for that and do a whole panel and get to talk about that. It just reminded me, it's like, yeah, it's nice to talk about art that feels joyful and creative and trans focused, and getting to be on stage talking about being creative was nice. And the coolest thing for me was this is the first panel I've ever been on at a con where we had a curtain, where it was a big enough stage where we had a curtain. Because, you have a curtain sometimes that you, like, walk out from behind to go on stage. Yeah. I've never had that before. Every other panel I have is just one of those rooms where the panel's just there and you just walk up on the
so you're
stage.
just sitting there waiting for it to start.
Yeah, or walk on out from outside.
Oh, so you got, like, introduced and everything.
Yeah, we had a whole thing. It was a whole thing. There was a moderator. It was great. It was a really fun time. So, yeah, no, it was really great to do something that felt very positive and creative and supporting something that we got to make. So it was really nice. It was good. So
good. I'm great. That's good. I'm happy for you. I did one other thing this past week. So I have no idea when it'll be released, but I appeared on Dominic Noble's podcast.
Oh, him and his co-host.
Reginald's Book Club.
Yeah. Him and Reginald's podcast. Yeah. Was Reginald there this time?
He couldnn't make it.
Damn. I have never gotten a chance to be on the podcast with him.
I know, it's damn timing. But I did possibly the most masturbatory thing I could have done, which was I had him read my book and we just talked about that.
Perfect. Amazing. I love that.
Honestly, I debated doing that. I'm like,
no, do it.
Fuck it.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. How did it go? How did he appreciate the without spoiling for listeners, the forest moss scene?
Oh yes, that came up. It continues to, like, at this point I am so tickled by how much that scene messes people up.
It's not even like that super pertinent to the plot even. It's a great scene and it's like it's not important, but it's like it's kind of ancillary to a lot of other things going on.
Well, and like direct plot relevance, no. Establishing like
the world,
making it very clear how dangerous the forest is, kind of important.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying its plot relevance is slightly tangential, but it's one of my favorite moments in the book. Let me be very clear.
I have so much fun because like I think I even told you this. I didn't realize how messed up that scene was until I started getting feedback, and I now still get it from people who read the book for the first time. Like, that bit, dude, what the hell?
It's fucked up, and it says something about you that you're like, yeah, that's fine, that's great.
Like, the only explanation that I have in my head is that I'd just been living with the story and living with that scene for so damn long. I was so fully desensitized to it. And like, I hadn't conceived it to try and be that way. And because like I took so long writing it that by the time I started getting feedback that it was that way, I was just like, yeah, it's just the thing that happens.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you didn't take a razor to that part of the book and take it out. And speaking of which, let us talk about the comments from the Battlestar Galactica movie, Razor, that we did a conversation on.
That podcast was so fucking long.
It was 2.5 hours.
That took me all day to edit.
Well, it was good. People seem to enjoy it. So, yeah, most of the comments were around the Butterfingers moment, which we should clip out. I feel like we should clip that out.
Yes.
Funny not to.
Yes, I think the purity of your pause when I'm like, you do realize this, right? And you're just, yes. Yes, I do think I need to clip that and make that a short.
Yes, because yeah, giant robots conquer the world said, Vera, You do realize the term Butterfingers doesn't refer to the candy, right? Pause. You do know that, right? Long pause. YouTube ad begins to play. Ah.
YouTube tries to load the thing up with so many ads, but sometimes they're comedically timed.
Yep, no. So there's a lot of comments about that. But
Good.
also,
You freaking deserve it.
Dion Tane says, one way many sci-fi writers make blind jumps more dangerous is to have massive objects distort the jump process to the effect that the percentage of jump coordinates that are inside a massive object is many times higher than the real space occupied by those objects. That does not seem to be the case in Battlestar Galactica, or they have very confident pilots considering we've seen jumps very close to planets.
Well, yeah, they literally jumped into low atmosphere once.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, yeah, I don't think that that's the intention with the show, which is unfortunate. I mean, even Star Trek is kind of on and off about that because you see them going to warp all the time, but then there's episodes where like going to warp inside of a solar system will cause a lot of damage to the solar system. It's very dangerous. There's actually a good book series by, I want to make sure I get his name right because I interviewed him over on my channel, Chris Farnell, who did this really good book series where the whole book series is there's this ship that is essentially a Star Trekian ship where they are on a ship and having to go from planet to planet, but they can't stop the engine. And the engine, because it goes to warp essentially inside of a solar system, destroys every solar system that they leave. So literally they'd like go from solar system to solar system, trade with the planets, learn about the planets, and then literally destroy it on their way out every single time. And it's this very interesting commentary on Star Trek and colonialism, but it's dark as fuck. But it's very, very good.
Dear God.
Yeah, it's like, all right, we'll trade with them, we'll do the Star Trekian thing of learning about their culture, trading with them, and then they warp out and everyone's dead.
Damn,
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
That's dark as hell.
Yeah, it's a good series though. I enjoyed it. I should check it out. But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I don't think Battlestar Galactica is saying that. So, unfortunately. Buffy Vampire Slayer 364 says, the Butterfinger bit was so funny. The only reason I think I know what that means outside of a candy bar is because Carmen calls Junie Butterfingers in Spy Kids. So, yeah. That's always very fun. Let's see here. The Arcane Master says, as a Star Trek The Next Generation girly, I was effing thrilled to see Michelle Forbes playing another space badass girl boss. I loved her as Ensign Ro and thought she nailed this role. Yeah, I mean, I will say Michelle Forbes, regardless of how we think about the character Kane, I think she does a great job in this role. So,
I mean, by and large, for I've pointed this out before, for all the complaints that I frequently have at this point about this show, it is almost never the actors.
Yeah, no, the actors are generally really great and add a lot more depth to some scenes in a lot of cases.
On occasion, the actors are fumbling, but that's usually because the writing is exceptionally tortured as opposed to its standard level of tortured.
Yes. Yeah, no, the acting is great. Especially a lot of they get sexualized a lot, but a lot of the women in the show are very, very good. Like Trisha Helfer.
The actresses are great.
Yeah. No, Trisha Helfer is phenomenal, especially considering she was she just came from a modeling career right before this show.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, so she was a model right before she started the show. And not to say that those two things are so vastly different. Modeling doesn't require a lot of skill. It does, but for this to be one of her first major role.
It's a different skill set. Like, I kind of had it hammered into me because I did a review for listeners. This will have been last month of the movie Haywire, which was Gina Carano's first movie.
Yes.
All issues with her as a human being aside, she's not good in that movie because you can tell she doesn't know how to act. And I don't mean that in like the normal way we tend to think of a bad actor, like overdoing it or, flubbing the lines or like coming across as really fake. She doesn't come across as fake. She comes across as not present.
Mm-hmm.
Because there will be scenes with her, like I singled this out in the review. There's this one shot of her and Channing Tatum, like kind of looking into the middle distance as this guy they just extracted is getting taken away. And Tatum's there, his eye line shifts a few times. He's kind of shifting foot to foot. He's chewing a bit of gum. He's coming across as impatient. You get a sense of character as he's just standing there looking at his eye line. And then Gina Carano is literally just standing there stock still and looking at her eye line. She knew how to stand on her mark and look at her eye line, but that's literally all she knew how to do. She did not understand what it meant to bring across a character. So to note that somebody came from modeling, went straight into acting, like they don't have a training in any of that. So to pick it up and develop it as well as Trisha Halford is, that's no small thing.
Yeah, no, and she does a great job as Six. And speaking of Six, it is time to talk about the episode 6 of 1, the second episode of Galactica's final and fourth season, and the second part of the two-parter that we started off the season with.
That was not bad.
Yeah, it was a good transition. I was proud
That
of
was
myself.
pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what was good about that one?
Uh-huh.
You managed to wait for the right moment, but not be so self-pleased about it that I saw it coming and felt the need to interrupt you just to fuck with you.
Yeah. No. Well, now you just interrupted me afterwards. So
I know.
And ruined the whole flow. But yes, we are talking about 6 of 1, so let us get into our recap of the episode. We start off right where we left off last episode, where Starbuck has gone into Adama's room where Roslin is staying and sort of taken her hostage at gunpoint. We have Ty and Hilo coming down with a sort of group of Marines going to the president's room. Hilo wants to talk to her and see if he can talk Starbuck down, where Ty is like, you can try and talk all you want, but, we go in as soon as we hear the first bang. And Adama also heads down from the bridge once he hears about this. But inside the room, Starbuck has Roslin at gunpoint, and he sort of she closes the door and says, I want to hate you so much. You had a vision, and you remember when you sent me to find the arrow of Apollo on Caprica, and there was the temple, and I went down to the planet, and all of this stuff that I have followed you on because and people died for, all because you had a vision. I trusted you just on a vision. And I saw Earth. I saw it with my own eyes, and it's calling me back, and we're going the wrong way. Why can't you trust me? So it says all this to Roslin. And then she takes her gun and puts it down on the table and says, if you think I'm a Cylon, then I'm your enemy, and you should shoot me. Take it. I'm no more a Cylon than you are, and you know it. Yes.
Back up a second. She does end up putting it down on the table. That's not the first thing she does.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing she does is turn the gun around and hold it out for Roslin to just be able to take and shoot it. So Starbuck is holding it with the barrel pointed at herself.
Yes.
And when Roslin doesn't take it, then she puts it on the table.
Yes. I'd say keeps going. I was like, I put my life on the line for this ship. I pissed off my friends. I fracked up numerous ways, but it's all I have. Those people are my family, and none of us belong here. And then Tilo and Ty show up, and again, Starbuck reiterates, like, if I'm a Cylon, shoot me. And then this is where Roslin says, they made you perfect, didn't they? Picks up the gun and fires. But by the time, this is when Ty and Hilo run into the room after hearing the shot, and we see that she missed. And it's actually because, in a very subtle metaphor, the shot has hit the picture of Roslin and Adama that's on the wall, with the shot going right through Roslin. So it's like, oh, it's almost as if you're hurting yourself by not listening to Starbuck. It's a metaphor. Oh,
it's so subtle.
Yes, very, very subtle. But yes, they sort of, tackle her down, and Starbuck starts yelling, I'm not a Cylon. I'm not a Cylon. You're listen to me. The ringing, I know the way to Earth. It's getting weaker. Don't any of you understand? It was so clear. Like, it was coming from the next room. And, Adama comes in. He says, stop. She says, stop looking at me. I can feel it slipping away, even without jumping. It's half of what what it was when we got here. If you keep on jumping, it'll be gone. I thought we wanted a way to Earth. Yeah, and so one more jump and it'll be gone.
Yep.
So, yep. She's very much, like, pissed off about all of this and being very desperate as well. Mm-hmm. So, we jump over then to the Cylons, over on their base star. Oh boy, you seem to have thoughts on this.
Well, what's one of the first things we see?
The hybrid. Your favorite hybrid friend.
Then after that,
and then Boomer doing her naked stretches.
Yay!
What is it? Boomer. I keep forgetting the model. Boomer's an 8. Yes.
Boomer is an 8.
Yes. So N8. Whether or not it's Boomer, we don't know if it's Boomer or not. But N8.
I would say, given later events, it is likely not.
Yes. So a Boomer is doing naked stretches just cause, has nothing to do with the scene or pertinent to anything whatsoever.
Let's also note that she's doing them in front of Cavill.
Yes. Yeah.
So, which, fuck's sake. Okay. I was prepared to get with at least the theory that the Cylons don't care about nudity. In practice, it's only ever just been the women. We've pointed that out before. But like, here's the thing that really ticks me off. Not only is she doing this, it's not like when Baltar walked through before and like saw a bunch of eights doing this because they were like in some area that was like, I don't know,
Somewhere on the ship.
the yoga room or something. This eight is doing it in Cavill's office in front of him as he sits there like,
Yep.
The degree to which this show has found ways to further sexualize already heavily sexualized characters is staggering.
Yeah, especially since it's so unnecessary for anything that happens plot-wise in this episode. It relates to nothing.
We're gonna have a little button put on it in a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyways, we have the hybrid talking gibberish. And some other Cylons are listening to the hybrid, including A6, which is another 6, by the way. Like, this is a new 6.
Yes.
Because it's not Caprica 6, it's not Head 6, it's another 6.
This is basically she's just here to represent all the other 6s that aren't Caprica and Head 6.
Yes, yes.
And obviously not Pegasix, because she
not
blew
Pegasix.
up,
So this is yet another 6. So we need to come up with a name for her. Let us call her. What's a fun name?
I have no idea, dude.
Sixy? We'll call her Sixy.
You're not helping.
Yeah, no, I'll sexualize her. She's 60. So so yes, 60, and then we have another 8, presumably not Boomer. Again, it's unclear. But a few different Cylons are listening to the hybrid. And one of the things that the hybrid says is rise and measure the temple of the 5, like clearly alluding to something to do with the final 5.
Yeah.
So that is clearly being brought up in what the hybrid is saying. And so we have a conversation between Cavill and 8 and 60. And they're sort of arguing with Cavill, like, the hybrid is telling us something. And Cavill's like, well, it's not supposed to be listened to. It's not even supposed to bomb at metaphysics. It's just supposed to be a tool to be used to help us jump. And we're not supposed to be listening to it in any way. And Sixie basically argues that she's trying to tell us something, that the humans, that the final 5 are with the humans in the colonial fleet. So yeah, obviously she's correct in that estimation. And
well, 4 out of the 5. We don't know about the 5th one, although
sure.
Presumably the 5th one is also somewhere in the mix.
We shall see. But yes, they sort of arguing like they're near, and Cavill is very, very against this. Like, do you see what's happening? You're openly discussing the final 5. That's forbidden. You're toying with our survival. And he sort of argues in a very sexualized way. He says, we're all copies. You know, you have, you know, your looks, you have this. He says, 8s, you have your breasts. And I have the brains.
Yeah, because it goes down the line. He like points at Leoben, like all of you have the same nose to 6. Like you all have the same mouth. All 8s share the same breast. Jeez, fucking.
Yeah, and he points out his brains, and he's like, I'm the smart one in the room, essentially.
And like, I'm sure that at this point the excuse is that Cavill is established as a character who sexualizes other people. First of all, I've always found that to be the least interesting thing about him, because while it could theoretically be interesting to have a machine indulge in as many earthly vices as he does, the show has never done anything with that. So that now feels like an excuse to just do shit like this. So I don't buy that one anymore. And I'm just going to note this here, that I am going to get, I understand why it is this way, but I also don't care. I'm going to get very frustrated very quickly with it is forbidden for us to think about or talk about or discuss the final 5. I'm going to get sick of this real quickly, and here's why. I understand that it theoretically is making basically a point about dogma. Like they've been told, we don't do this thing because we don't do this thing. And that's supposed to be enough. And you're not supposed to question it. So thematically, in terms of the religiously tinged motivations of the Cylons, I understand that that is a dogmatic instruction. However, that theming doesn't fully paper over the fact that for me, it is very much a hand of the author trying to cover the fact that this has never come up before, and we have to explain why these Cylons don't know anything. And it feels like a massive band-aid over that. Now, it's a band-aid that I could live with depending on how long they fucking string this out. And I'm not saying string out the reveal of the last one of the final five, but I mean string out a reason or a rationale as to why it is forbidden. If I don't get that in the next few episodes, I'm going to be increasingly annoyed every time it is used as an excuse to paper over this whole thing.
What I will say to at least help you with this, and actually it will relate to your Cavill problem and his human vices element too. You will get an answer, and I actually think it is one of the more interesting answers. And actually, and I didn't even think about this, will also relate to your issues with Cavill as well, which we'll get to.
Okay.
And actually makes that very interesting now that I think about it. So let's put a pin in this topic, and I'll talk about it as fast as I can in the spoiler minute for listeners. But I actually do think that this exact thing and what you're expressing as a potential frustration will be addressed. I will at least say that for you.
It's not that I don't think it'll ever be addressed. It's a question of how long they're going to ask me to put up with it. That's where my concern is right now.
How do you feel about second half of the season?
That's too fucking long, man. Well, okay, no, hold that. That's too long if they keep reminding me of this. So it's one of those cases of they have just put a massive band-aid over what is otherwise a plot hole.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they don't keep drawing attention to it, I'll be okay. But if it keeps coming up, if the notion of no, we can't talk, no, it's forbidden. The more they bring it up between now and whenever that happens, the more I'm going to be annoyed. Mostly because it's just going to remind me of how long they're stringing me along on this shit.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it ultimately shakes out. But yeah, I will at least give you the comfort of knowing there will be an answer. So
okay,
yes.
I didn't doubt that there would be. I'm just. It's the length of time that, like, at this point, I feel like this show should have been the miniseries in 2 seasons, is kind of my overall feelings about the show at this point. I'm trying to make some allowances for the fact that it's a 20-episode season and whatnot. So, like, the fact that it happens later, fine. Just don't rub it in my face that you're...
Yeah, it's like ooh, here's this little mystery, you know, yeah.
Exactly. Don't treat it like the fucking Doctor Who mystery box. I hate that shit.
Okay, so there is that element of it. So yes, talking about dogma, him very much, because he does, at this point, Cavill is giving some level of explanation of like, you know, you're violating that programming. Like, our mechanized makers made us not to think about the final five. They must have had a reason. And so violating that programming threatens our survival. And then they start talking about the Raiders, because Sixty brings up that the Raiders changed. They are making choices of their own, and so we learn that last episode, when the Raiders all went back to the base stars, they did that on their own.
That was an nothing that the decision.
Human. Yes.
They weren't ordered to do that.
Yes, and the human-looking Cylons have no idea why or for what reason they did that. Yeah. And so Cavill starts arguing that they exceeded their programming and they're tools, not pets, and we need to lobotomize them. Well, 60 calls it lobotomize, and he calls it like fixing them or like fixing their programming. I forget exactly the word he uses. But she calls it lobotomizing, and he points out, he goes, they're tools, not pets. He doesn't, for lack of a better word, personify them or give them some level of agency in any way.
Yeah.
And
yeah, for him, them acting independently is a bug.
Yes. And 60s, and I really like this different look at like how they view Raiders, because if you remember Sharon way back in, I think this is the original Boomer, way back in season 1 when Starbuck found the Raider. she described it kind of like that. It's like a pet. It runs on instinct. Like she has this sort of like way of looking at it as like an animal, and so still lesser than her as a human, sort of still a hierarchy there, but still some level of like looking at it as a being.
Yeah.
Whereas Cavill's just like, nope, just a tool, just a tool, just a thing. For lack of a better word, dehumanizing, I guess is still not the right word, but depersifying um, someone part of their own race, which is kind of interesting to me. Um, and so Six E points out, well, you don't have the authority to make the change to the Raiders without a vote. Um, and so they say, basically, Cavill's like, all right, we'll put it to a vote. And he also points out the final five are anywhere but with the humans, and you should be pushing to understand our origins. So,
Yeah.
yep. Cut to Ty, Chief, Anders, Tori, our little cadre of the final four of the final five that we know of, are having
Yep.
a meeting.
The 4
And
out of 5.
yeah, the 4 out of 5, not the 6 of 1, but the 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
And Chief has just shown up, and he's like, "Well, sorry, I'm late. Callie was having trouble sleeping. I couldn't really slip away." And they start talking about, Starbuck, and they're sort of well, something gets brought up where Ty says, well, the president, they put a bullet in Starbuck's head because she suspected that Starbuck might be a Cylon. What do you think people would do, what she would do if she learned that you actually were one? But they start pointing out, well, like Starbuck hasn't said that she heard the same music that we did, so we don't really think she's a Cylon. We don't necessarily know for sure. And she points out, well, Baltar, he might know something because I found him on the planet way back when with the supernova and the Temple of the Five last season. He was talking with Deanna, another Cylon, and they were discussing stuff. So he may know more about who the final five are. And Ty's like, well, Baltar is accomplished with women. He opens up with women, and Tori's like, absolutely not, and says, fuck off. Yep. And Ty says, wait.
Boy, do I wish that was more than lip service for saying that.
Yeah, well, Ty says, we don't have to get on your back for him, and Tori's like, gee, thanks. But essentially, they come up with a plan to have Tori go and talk to Baltar and see if she can learn some information about who the last of the final five are and how much he knows about them.
Yeah.
So
like we'll get to where this goes. Like it's not all bad insofar as like yes, Baltar's a fucking idiot who runs his mouth post coitus.
Yes.
Like you're not wrong. So it's not like it is taking advantage of a known character flaw of Baltar, but especially with what's going to end up happening, it just feels so fucking token that she's like, no, I absolutely will not do this.
Mm-hmm.
Proceeds to, like, we'll get there, but proceeds to immediately go and do this.
Yeah. I mean, I have mixed feelings on it. Let me put it this way. It's not the most unconceivable or worst thing in the world given where Tori's at. I just wish Tori was slightly more of a character before this point.
That's
justify
ultimately my problem because we'll get there. But when I look at those scenes, the stuff that happens with Baltar is pretty good and she feels like a prop.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tori, it's not that Tori has had no character, but since discovering she's a Cylon, she's been very detached from the characterization she's had up to this point. Because a lot of the characterization we'd had of her, in terms of her strategic thinking and her organization and everything else, was in relation to her working with Roslin. That is a relationship we haven't seen in a while. Basically, since Roslin told her to go comb her hair. We basically haven't seen them functioning at all. And so the show hasn't really done much to personify her outside of that setting, which results in stuff like what's going to be happening here feel way more exploitative than they should for a character who's been around this long and has actually gotten as much characterization as she has, but it just feels like all the characterization that happened prior to the Cylon reveal has just been dropped. Well, she doesn't even feel like a different character. She feels like way more of a cipher now.
Well, what it is for me, and I think with this, we're kind of jumping ahead, I know, but we're already talking about it. Like, what it feels like for me that they're trying to do is that it's kind of a similar thing to Anders in a degree to a degree where she feels like untethered from her own identity and feels much more kind of lost and even more depressed about it than Anders. Anders is sort of like, shooting out, like lines to figure out any level of like, who am I sort of thing. Whereas she just sort of seems more just lost and depressed about all of it. But that's a little bit harder than Anders to do because Anders has had solid characterization and multiple ways that we have seen his identity shown across multiple relationships. Whereas Tori, well, we can kind of presume some level of it. Again, as you said, her relationship has mainly been with Roslin, and we have not seen much of her relationship to other characters, so it's hard to understand her contextually with, like, what is her normal relationship to Baltar before this point? We don't know. And so it's hard to like sort of see the distinction between where she was at beforehand and where she is at now in terms of her relating to Baltar and where it ends up taking her. Whereas if we had seen her be much more, and we get, again, you can presume a little bit of it, where it's like she probably is a bit more like, fuck Baltar, he sucks, I think he's an ass. But we have never really seen that before this point, and it just gets brought up here, and then ultimately she's now doing something different. And so the show sort of wanting to shock us into like, oh, she's doing this thing with Baltar that seems so out of character for her, but we haven't gotten enough of her doing that in character to make it seem so out of character when it does happen.
I think another part of the problem is that, like, so with Sam, with Anders, like, yes, he's questioning, he's feeling a bit untethered, but we had a very solid idea of who he was. Here's part of the problem timing wise. Tori already felt untethered the instant we saw her hooking up with Sam, and it was like, what the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
She already felt untethered from the character as we had known her. And then they went and untethered her from that already untethered stage. And now she's like 2 stages removed from anything that we have actually spent time with.
Yeah, and it still comes back to the same, like, I think it all goes back to, like, the final 5 reveal, because I think she was feeling untethered with Anders as a way to, like, show, like, she's feeling something going on.
Yeah,
before...
like, I'm sure in some way it's intended to, like, link together, but, like, when your through line is, I don't know who I am, and neither do the audience, really, that's...
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of, to make a comparison here to a similar show that Ronald D. Moore worked on, Deep Space Nine, there's a character of Nog, who is a secondary character, and he is mainly a secondary character to the character of Jake, just like Tori is kind of a secondary character of Roslin, Jake being the son of Captain Sisko, the main lead character of the show. But as the series goes on, Nog starts to develop other relationships to other characters on the station. He's friends of Jake, but he also, like, Sisko kind of looks down on him as a Ferengi. Nog has his own dad and his uncle, Uncle Quark, his dad, Rom. Like, all of these numerous relationships, so we can kind of learn who Nog is. And his relationship and feeling about other characters and things like that. So he then gets, like, episodes and scenes with other characters showcasing the kind of person that he is. And he eventually joins Starfleet and all this jazz. And then the final season of the show, without spoiling for people who haven't seen it, he suffers a trauma. And then they finally, for the first time, give him in the final season of the show a whole episode just about his character, a secondary character to, even if you want to argue, a secondary character to a secondary character in the show. And it works because this episode is about him trying to find himself after a trauma, but we've known who he was over 6 seasons of a show and his relationships with numerous people to understand that he is out of character when he has this trauma. Whereas Tori is having this big trauma moment, but because we only have seen her with Roslin and she's not interacting with Roslin when discussing her trauma, she is this sense of being untethered. We just have no thing to link it to be able to see where she was at, what she would be otherwise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So.
I knew a bit about the Nog stuff because I saw the Ferengi video when it first went up into early access on your Patreon.
Shut up. Shut up. Oh, I hate you.
Hey, look, you cooked your own goose on that one.
It's true. Anyways, next scene, we jumped over to Adama going to visit Starbuck, who is currently in the brig, and he basically goes, what were you doing? What were you thinking? What happened to you? And Starbuck says, well, I saw Earth, the shape of it, the smell of it. I swear it was like I'd been there before, like I'd never left. And Adama goes, well, you're too stupid to figure out you screwed over the one ally you had. You didn't have the guts to hold on, so who's going to help you now? And Starbuck goes, yeah, Frak me. I'm sure as hell isn't going to be you who's going to help me. You got to remind yourself that you're someone else. You're the president's wet nurse. You're the one who doesn't have the guts. And then Adama, being the emotionally mature man that he is, takes her and shoves her to the ground. And this is when Starbuck says, "Nice to know you still care, Admiral." And she has, what I read is she starts laughing, but in that sort of like stressed out, upset, like I'm, at the end of my wits sort of laughter. And
Yeah.
Adama sort of walks out and she yells, "We're going the wrong way," as he leaves.
If we had a nickel for every time we had to talk about the optics of a man beating the shit out of
Mm.
Starbuck, we'd probably have about 20 cents by now.
Yeah, yeah, which is upsetting. It's a
Yeah.
lot
Like
of
this is
physical violence towards Starbuck. Especially considering
honestly,
she's a victim of abuse in her childhood too, as they make a point of saying. It's
yeah.
ugh.
Honestly, this is probably one of the slightly less egregious instances of it because it's pretty brief and like she confronts him with what he did basically immediately. And even Adama is clearly off kilter, so it's coming across a lot less personal than like say the times that Ty has hit her or Lee has hit her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's still just like I've seen so many men hit this woman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
just,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I think
It's
again, not
okay. She's one of the
yeah, that
guys.
was my thing too. It's like they sort of, especially since the character was originally in the original show a guy. I think there's
Yeah.
some level of like she's like one of the dudes, and it's just like, it's a lot more complicated there, and especially again as the show has gone out of its way to say she's also a victim of physical abuse as a child, and now her other father figure, or parent figure, I should say, is abusing her. It's kind of a weird thing. Um,
Yeah.
and like she eggs it on a little bit, but not to say that it's okay. I'm not like saying that approves of it in any way, but it is like part of like her intention to get this reaction from him. So yeah,
Like
it's
he's
a little
been
complicated.
called way worse.
Yes, yes. Well, he is also feeling untethered. It's like everyone's
Well,
untethered
yes.
from their identity in this season so far. Um,
Hmm.
but we jump over to the Cylons again, and they have conferred all the models for the vote. And Cavill is sort of presiding over the sort of council thing, whatever we're doing here. And he sort of says, "Well, the fours and fives join me, the ones, and voting to reconfigure the Raiders, and the two sixes and eights have voted to not. So we seem to be deadlocked." And Cavill then goes, "Well, I'm machine enough to admit that I was wrong. There's something extraordinary has happened." And Boomer comes out and says that and Cavill reveals that she voted against her models to vote to lobotomize the Raiders. Now, Sixie is really upset about this, and Cavill's like, and he kind of playing it cool, but he's like, "I was shocked too." And Sixie's like, "Well, no one's ever voted against their model ever before." And Boomer sort of argues that we have to be able to defend ourselves. That's her justification. And Sixie blames Cavill, and he's like, "Nope, this was entirely her decision. Not I did nothing." And one of the or not the Cavils, one of the politician ones. When I'm blanking on his name now,
Doral.
Dorals. He says, "Well, there's nothing that forbids it. It's just never happened before." Um, and 60 starts arguing about this is like, "Have you lost our minds? Our identities are determined by our models. Each model is unique and we belong together." Which I find is an interesting contradiction there. Each model is unique, but we belong together, that sort of thing. Which
Well, when she says each model is unique, she means each model designation.
mm,
Each specific person who is that model is
is
not
not.
unique.
Yes. And she makes the point, is like you said, Cavill, mechanized copies. Those are your words. And he says, "Well, your words are something has changed." I wholeheartedly agree now. And 60 is like, 60 points out, it's like, "Well, you're not a god. You can't get to determine what to do with the Raiders." And Cavill says, "You're right. I'm a mechanic. I was designed for a job. And the Raiders were designed for a job, and they'll go back to being happy warriors." And 60 says, "I'll pray for you. I'll pray hard."
I do find it interesting, just logistically, that they are basically taking Boomer, one individual model of eight as having a whole vote,
Mm-hmm.
since having dissented from the rest of her model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that very interesting. I mean, I do find this kind of interesting too. Just like this is some stuff where we're learning about the mentality of how the Cylons view themselves and how their society about like, oh well, this is just a norm that we just sort of presumed that she's not going to vote. People don't vote against their models,
Yeah.
and it's
Well, the impression you get is it's not like all the sixes go and confer. Like there's a six there to vote with the presumption that she will vote what every other six would have voted anyway. So,
Mhm. And we're starting to see the like level of divergences from the models and the traumas that have caused them to diverge. Again, going into like identities, deciding identity sort of thing, which I kind of find fascinating as like a recurrent theme this season, sometimes problematically done, but like a recurrent theme going on here. Um, and also like Cavill's sort of more nonchalant sort of thing here is like, yeah, something has changed. And sort of like kind of they're using their own words against each other, and Cavill sort of like playing it to his benefit here.
mhm.
So yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, they're admitting that, the other person had a correct point of view, or at least had some legitimacy to what they're saying, but now it's kind of reversed who gets to take advantage of that. I kind of find that very, very interesting. So
Mhm.
yeah, interesting stuff going on with the Cylons. We then jump over to Lee's goodbye party in
Which it took
the.
me a minute to figure out because I was like, what the fuck are they celebrating? Am I forgetting something from the previous episode? And then I saw Lee and they're all like, oh, I'm like, oh, it's a farewell party.
Yes, it's a farewell
Um,
party. Though they are playing strip poker too as they walk in. I found very funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
interestingly. I'm gonna point out something now that I actually had the thought later,
Hmm.
and it's something that is not necessarily a problem with the show. Boy, would I have loved if the show had been aware of it and
Hmm.
maybe pointed this out.
Hmm.
But it is interesting that Lee is allowed to leave the position
Hmm.
that he has training for, that he has shown himself to be very skilled for, that they have a very limited number of people who can do what he does, but they let him leave his position when there was an entire thing about how they were having to put people with certain sets of skills or even vaguely related skills to do work that they did not want to do.
Hmm.
It's really interesting how different it is for the military and ruling class
And the son
versus the
of
work.
and the son of the admiral.
Yep, versus the working class.
Hmm.
And it's not a problem that that hypocrisy is present. Boy, would I have loved for the show to have been fucking aware of the fact that it did that. But just like how it missed every single time Zarek made a legitimate point, it is not aware at
Yep,
all.
it's the Babylon 5 propaganda point
It's the
all
exact
over it.
it's the exact same issue, except I always find it more frustrating here because and like maybe this is just an impression I get, but I always feel like Battlestar Galactica thinks it's actually clever, whereas Babylon 5, especially at the start, has a little bit more of that. Oh, it's a space adventure thing, and it introduced like more depths later on. Battlestar Galactica has had this feeling of, ooh, we've got things to say, and I'm always going to be more judgmental of people who miss what it is they're even putting out in the world when they have that attitude versus ones that like, oh wow, there's more depth than I thought. You missed an opportunity, but there's more here than I thought, which was what it felt more like with Babylon 5.
Yeah, yeah, no, I very much agree. Well, anyways, there's a goodbye party. And he does, Lee does some toasts. He's one to the men and women of Galactica, to the Admiral, and all of that
They
jazz
have this whole lineup of like 7 shots,
that
and
he has
like
to do in a row. Yeah,
everyone he does, he like takes a shot like to the fleet, to the men and women of Galactica,
yeah. No, it seems like that's part of like that's a going away. It's part of a ritual that people who
yeah,
retire or
yeah.
whatever do or whatever.
It's very so the liquor he's drinking
It's
it
green. It's bright green.
well I can't what is it Andarian whiskey or whatever it is
Star Trek?
from Star Trek.
Andorian whiskey. Though that one's
Andorian,
blue. That's
thank you.
blue. It's blue.
Oh well, there's something that's green because it's from Star
Might
Trek
be
Next
Romulan
Generation.
ale. Romulan ale is green, I think.
There's something because there's the episode where Scotty comes back and he asks for real alcohol and Data finds the bottle and Scotty's like, well, what is it? It is it is green. It was
Yeah.
this it's same damn color.
Now I'm curious because both Andorian and Romulan ale are blue, and Data says, yeah, that there's the episode with Data that he says it is green. Oh, synthahol.
No,
Synthahol.
synthahol is no. It's not, because synthahol is what Scotty won't drink, and he insists on real
Yeah.
alcohol.
He does it is green. The drink is later revealed to be Aldebranian whiskey.
Ah, I knew it was something whiskey.
Yeah, it's a whiskey. Yeah. Well, nice call. That was good. Yeah. Nice pullback. Anyways,
I'm not the biggest Trekkie in the world, but the episodes that I like, I've seen repeatedly, and I know very well.
good episode. Relics. It's the episode Relics with Scotty. It's a
That's
good
the
episode.
one.
Yep. Anyways, one of the things that Lee does a toast to is to absent friends. And when he does that, Adama is looking at a picture of Starbuck. And I like how this is edited too, because he's looking at the picture of Starbuck at this point. And when he says absent friends, we then cut to a shot of Zach, and it almost seems like it's the same photo, but it's not. And we pull back and reveal that it's Adama back in his office working on his model ship that he presumably repaired. And he has the masthead that Starbuck gave him that he's looking at. And I actually really, I'll give credit to this. I really like this because it's connecting a lot of ideas of like Starbuck being dead and then connecting it to his feelings around Zach, or like, and now she's back. And so it says a lot visually about where Adama is and manages to connect it really well. So I really did like that whole sequence there.
Yeah, no, it's solid.
Yeah. We then go to the scene that we kind of already talked about a lot, but it's Tori. She is in a mess hall with Baltar, and Baltar's wearing this like ascot looking thing.
Yeah,
it's very hoity-toity in a way that fits Baltar in an odd way. But it's a different look for him. Anyways, she's sort of kind of giving him glances across the room, kind of spying on him, and Baltar notices this. And he goes over to her and sits with her. There's a couple people that are hostile to him in the mess hall, like, that sort of thing. But he sits down with her, and he's like, "You're spying on me. I've seen you here a few times watching me." And she's just like, "Well, I heard about the miracle." And we sort of heard that, like, it's being considered a miracle, the kid getting healed last week. And Baltar sort of assumes, like, "Oh, you mean Roslin heard about it? You're spying on me for Roslin." And she's like, "Well, I have been spying on you." And he's like, "Oh, look, you sitting down for that." But she says, "I'm here for myself. I've been watching these people, the way they look at you."
And again, worth noting, he like left behind a table of his, I don't know, followers, for lack of a better word, all women.
Mm-hmm.
Every single goddamn one.
Yep. But this is a point where Head Baltar appears for Baltar.
Yeah.
Which is first.
Which caught me off guard, partly because I don't think I said anything, but in my mind, I'd already thought I'd figured out how they were going to introduce him to Head Baltar. And I was wrong. Like, I had a specific scene in my head as to how that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought they were going to do, or maybe it's just what I would have done, is to eventually get him in a scene with Six
Caprica.
again. Yes, with Caprica. And that she would have Head Baltar and he would have Head Six, and that the two head versions of each other would start interacting with each other. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought was going to happen to start doing this crossover. And I don't know. Visually, I kind of would have preferred it. I think it might have snuck up on people a little bit more than just having all of a sudden there he is. Although, like, it's jarring if that's what they're going for.
Who's to say that scene won't happen in the future?
No, but I think like as a way to reveal that, like, these aren't isolated to each one's internal head perspective, I think doing that as a reveal would have hit harder, that being the moment. But then, yeah, that's me.
We'll see. Well, anyways, it is Head Baltar, and this kind of throws Baltar for a little bit of a loop, but he sort of Head Baltar points out, well, she's a wonderful source of information. You can kind of feel her out. And I find it interesting here, too, that, like, Tori sort of asks, like, who are you talking to? And Baltar says to her, is like, I'm not talking to you. And this is really one of the first times we've seen Baltar acknowledge that he is not speaking to a person that the other person can see overtly. Like, all the other times where he's talking to Head Six, he's always tried to at least some way hide that he's talking to someone else from the person around them. It's kind of an interesting little shift.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just has to do with, um, in the most immediate sense, he is no longer trying to maintain a certain image. Like
Hmm.
three-quarters of this fleet fucking hates him
Yeah,
regardless.
he's
Like
like, fuck it, I'll just do
what's
whatever.
the point anymore?
Yeah, exactly. Um, and I Tori starts talking to him again. He's like, I can't stop thinking about what's happened to you. You were found as innocent when everyone hated you, when I hated you. And now there's Kara Thrace has come back when everyone thought she was dead. Perhaps there are miracles. And then Head Baltar says, perhaps, as well to that. And Tori points out, you seem to be at the center of a lot of miracles to Baltar. Um, and he's like, yeah, I don't understand myself. It's if God has chosen me to sing his song. Meaning, and he points out like the one true God. I'm tired of hiding that fact, he says to her. And he starts speaking about what it feels like for him to talk for God. He's like, it's like God has chosen me to sing his song, a song. And in this obviously hits Tori, though she doesn't reveal it because that's how she heard that she was a Cylon. Very similar. And he's like, yes, it's like there's a chorus tuning up, and then it gets stronger, and then it's as if someone waves a magic wand and those notes slide into place. And the cacophony becomes a melody. And obviously Tori is like thrown by this because it very much relates to her experience. And then she sort of gets up and says, I shouldn't be seen here. And so she gets up and walks away, sort of thrown for all of this and how much like he's really relating to her without knowing it. And then Baltar turns to Head Baltar, is like, who the frack are you? He's like,
I do kind of like that like he held it together enough to like not make it a thing while Tori was still there, but now he's like, okay, what the fuck, man?
yeah. I do love how he goes like, who the frack are you? Am I supposed to be impressed? You're me. I love that he's like, am I supposed to be impressed that you're me? I mean, you are. And he's like, unless you aren't me, and he goes, six, is that you six? Meaning head six. Is that you in disguise? And Head Baltar says, why would she need to disguise herself for you? And Baltar's like, that's a good point. And Head Baltar's like, well, let's talk about Tori. You like her, do you? And Head Baltar's like, she's a sexy lady, yeah. And I like Head Baltar's like, oh, you slay me. He's just like, oh, you're always about the ladies, but she's more than all of those things. She's special. She's fragile. You should
Well,
handle her
they
with.
actually say fragile at the same time. They sync up, which is
Yes.
interesting because that's not the first time that a sync up has happened
Mm-hmm.
with Head Baltar, because we noted like he had a synchronized leg crossing
Mm-hmm.
little moment back on Caprica Classic during when that was still being
Thing.
occupied.
Yeah, when he's synced up with Boomer, I think at that point when Boomer couldn't see him. I think that was it, right?
I trying
Or
to
is it Deanna?
yeah, no, so it was Caprica 6 saw him,
Mm-hmm.
but his movement was synced up with Deanna.
Deanna, that's what it was. Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, that's what happens. And he says, you should handle her with care. And then of course Baltar says, oh, I'd love to. Ugh.
Yeah.
Fits him, to be fair.
I
But
mean, yeah, like that's the thing. I'm rolling my eye less over the character because I'm like, yeah, that tracks, but I'm like, that tracks, and I know what the fucking show's gonna use that to do.
mm-hmm. Well, then we cut to Adama is in his room with Roslin there, and Adama is clearly he gets another drink, and
Well,
Roslin.
he like finishes the one he has, and not like in a oh I'm out, but like and then pours another.
Yes, and Roslin says you're enjoying that more than usual, and Adama's excuse, well, it's like hair of the dog, Lee's party. Um, and Roslin starts giving you a conversation. Says, "Well, what do we do with Starbuck? Do we put her on trial? Should we find Romo Lampkin, take a show of hands, and follow her into an ambush?" And Adama says, "Well, she's driven." And then Roslin's like, "You gonna keep waltzing around, or you're going to sit down and talk?" Because Adama sort of goes off into his own little office in the back, and she
Yeah,
sort of calls him
he's
back.
kind of pacing.
Yes. Um, and she says, and Adama starts saying, well, what if she's telling the truth? She was supposed to die out there. She didn't. I can't explain it. What if she was meant to help us? And this is, and he kind of trails off. And Roz is like, what? A miracle? Is that what you want to call us? I want to hear Adama say that. I want to hear the atheist Adama say it's a miracle. And he points out, you shot at her at close aim and you missed. And she's like, well, my treatment could do that. My cancer treatment could do that. And Adama says, so can doubt do that as well. And Roslin argues like, well, she put her life in my hands as if it had no meaning. Maybe and she sort of uses that to argue like that's what a Cylon would do, like not caring about her own life because she could die and come back. Um, and Adama points out and says, well, maybe convincing you meant more to her than her own life. And Rosin goes, well, you want to talk about miracles? She goes through this whole thing about like, on the same day that I learned I had cancer, the human race gets killed. And then, we were able to find all of these things about the way to Earth. And then suddenly my cancer disappeared long enough for us to find that way to Earth. And now I'm dying. And then Adama sort of like looks away from that and she says, you got to face this. My life is coming to an end soon. I'm not going to apologize to you for not trusting her, and I'm not going to trust her with the fleet. And she points out, he's like, your son's leaving this. Everyone seems to be leaving you. And Adama says, you're not going anywhere. And Roslin sort of takes that. She's like, okay. And it's very clear. She's like, yeah, you're not accepting this, that like people are leaving you. And that's just how life goes. And she's like, this is what's going on. You want to believe Starbuck. You would rather that and be wrong about her and face your own demise than lose her again. And he says, you can stay in the room, but get out of my head. And he sort of walks away kind of angrily at this. And she says, you're so afraid to live alone. And he says back to her very angrily, you're afraid to die. You're afraid to die that way. You're afraid that you may not be the dying leader that you thought you were, or that your death may be as meaningless as everyone else's. And sort of leaves on that, and Roslin sort of just takes that in. And as he walks away, she sort of runs her hand through her hair, and her hair starts coming out from the chemo equivalent.
Yeah. It's a decent argument.
Mm-hmm.
For these characters, for where they're at this point. Like these two performers together are very good.
Yes,
together.
very much so.
And they remain so. Something I'm not sure that it necessarily needed to happen in this scene, or that even Adama would be the correct character to do it. But I kind of want somebody to take her to task for the fact that, like, you were more than happy to pull on the notion of miracles and visions when they were yours.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as they belong to somebody else, somebody who you did previously entrust your own visions to,
mm-hmm.
you are now dismissing them out of hand.
I mean, Starbuck kind of brought that up in the opening scene of the episode.
Yes, but Starbuck is also so distraught in her delivery of all this, it makes it easy for someone like Roslin to not take the substance of her words into account now.
It's an interesting logical argument, but like Starbuck is not delivering it in a sort of like logical
exactly way. So Starbuck is arguing from desperation and panic, and while she does bring that up, it's not going to get addressed for the actual issue it is. And like, I just kind of want to see somebody look her in the eye and say, did you ever believe the stuff you were saying before, or was it always political maneuvering?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you did believe it, then you need to explain why you don't believe this.
Yes. Yeah. What I will say is too is I do like the character exploration of Adama, because it does point out, and that's why I like that earlier scene with the Zach thing, sort of because it evokes the same idea of like he's lost a lot of people. Lee's leaving now too, and he doesn't want to face any of it, and he'd rather believe. I like that line that Roslin has, is like, you'd rather trust Starbuck and face your own demise than like lose her again. And like that's a preferable outcome to him emotionally. And I thought that was just an interesting way to break him down a little bit. So
yeah,
man doesn't like change.
No, not particularly.
No. So yeah, it's a good scene, a very good argument, and two great performers at the end there. Like I like, there's that one shot that I really like where when Adama sort of walks away, he's like, your death may be as meaningless as the rest of us, and they sort of linger on Roslin's face, and she just sort of holds this look, and it's a very interesting look on her face that she sort of holds up, like, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna take what he's saying, not show it to him, but you can kind of see that it's like it's hitting her a little bit. So
yeah,
I very well performed. So anyways, we then cut to Lee going to visit Starbuck in the brig. And we finally learn, to a degree, what Lee's job is, because, she sort of says, yeah, Zarek nominated me for a quorum spot. spot on the quorum.
The show remember that Zarek fucking exists.
Yeah.
God, you want to talk about one of the biggest wastes of a character? Like, and it's so infuriating because they would use him to introduce so many ideas that were worth exploring, but because they don't bring him back often, these ideas just get fucking dropped.
I will say he does have one big storyline that will come up soon. So
good.
Yeah.
Because like he's been great, and the show underuses him. And it wouldn't be such a problem if he wasn't the only one making a lot of these points. Like, especially back early on, again, with the classism points that the show seems to continually dismiss, apparently initially because he was the one who said it, and then later on because, like, oh, don't worry, those in power fixed it somehow.
Yeah.
Ah, fuck. But, like, it would have been one thing if, like, he was the one to introduce these ideas and somebody else picked up the mantle and did something with it, but they don't even do that.
Yeah.
Like,
he will have at least one more storyline. He does come back, and it's a big one. It's a big one for the season. So
good.
Yeah.
Good. Because, like, he deserved to be used so much more than the show has actually used him.
Yes, no, I agree very much so. But anyways, you know, Lee sort of says, yeah, Zarek has a big head, but I'm new to all of this and I could use the help. And he's like, I never really could say no to anything. And Starbuck says, except me. And Lee says, especially you. That being said, and the scene will end on that note kind of too, but there's a line that I did like that he says, where he says, I finally understand what you meant about destiny. I have to do this, meaning going into politics and leaving his wingman job. And he says, and that the fact that I don't have an explanation why doesn't seem to matter anymore. Which I kind of like that as a way to talk about destiny in a not like authority God from on high sort of way. Predetermined outcome, as a like, I feel I have a need to do something and I can't really articulate why it is, but that doesn't seem to matter to me anymore. I just gotta do it. And I kind of like that as a way to describe that feeling. So
yeah, no, that's pretty solid. I can work with that.
Yep. And somebody says, so say we all, and then she says, good luck on your journey, Lee. Adama, and Lee goes to leave, but then of course he turns back around and they kiss.
Here's the thing. I hate the kiss all the more for the fact that after they kiss, he says to her, I believe you. And they have like a far more platonic hug. And I'm like, just do that.
Yeah, I know.
Cut the kiss and just because like that is good. That like his reassurance of like, I'm by your side is just to say that I believe you. Because right now, literally nobody else does. That's a good moment. But what the fucking kiss.
I know. God, I agree. I much prefer the hug over the kiss.
Yeah, no, the hug and the I believe you is good. It's legitimately good, and the kiss can fuck off.
Well, then we have Lee standing in the Viper pilot, sort of, I don't know, presentation
launch bay.
Not the launch bay. It's the CAG room where they give the presentations on what the missions are going to be. He's sort of walking around there reminiscing. He's having a little, like, you can hear some audio flashbacks. He's sort of like nostalgic, like, oh, look at all the stuff that's happened here. But then he goes into the launch bay, the Viper Bay, and he's seemingly getting ready to go and fly off to wherever he's going to be living from now on. But then there is a whole lineup of the crew of the Galactica, and Roslin's there as well as Adama and everyone. And they give him a salute, sort of give him a big sign off as he leaves. And this obviously moves him to emotion. He's very sort of, he feels a lot about it.
This was the point that I made the note about, like, they just let him stop doing this job that they have limited people to do. But like they were going to force farmers to refine fucking oil for them.
Yeah. Well, he goes over to D, who gives him like this plaque that has his like a star, his Viper pilot star on it. And he hugs her and says, thank you. Well, it looks like he got the house in the divorce, meaning the Galactica. And he says, I'll miss you. And she says, goodbye, Lee. And hey, look, it's actually a mature way. They maturely handle their relationship dissolving for once right here.
Yeah, finally, once at the very end. Although I just want to know, who was it who decided to have his soon-to-be ex-wife be the one that hands it.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
asshole decided that that was her job?
I would like to hope that it was her. She chose to be the one to do it. That she asked to be. That would be my hope.
I hope so too. Like I did actually like where he's like, "I'll miss you," and she just says goodbye, Lee. That's actually the only thing she says to him,
Mm,
pretty much at all, because he says a couple things to her and she's just there, and then at the end she just says goodbye, Lee. It's like so clear, like I'm fucking done with
yeah,
your bullshit. Have your little sentimental moment, have your little send off. Goodbye.
yeah. It's like, all right, we're good. We're good, man. We're good.
Yeah. Fuck off
uh,
out of my life now, please. Thank you and good night.
Yep, yep. And Lee then goes over and hugs Adama, and it's all very nice, and he has a nice little send-off as the Nepo baby getting to leave the fleet. Um, we then cut back over to the Cylons, and we see Simon is lobotomizing the Raiders. Though I like the presumption that they have to do it like one up by one for every single Raider. And there's like a fuck ton of Raiders, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But like it makes sense just for the amount of organic stuff, particularly in the that operates within these things' brains. That it's not like you could just mass send out a patch over the Wi-Fi,
Yeah, yeah. No, so he has to go through and do it one by one.
and it's
Um,
very gooey.
Yeah, lots of goo. We like the goo. We like gooey stuff here. But then Sixie comes into look, you gotta name them differently. There's too many of them. Sixie comes in and she's talking to Cavill and the other ones that sort of sided with Cavill, the other models, the Simons and the Dorals and all of them. And she says, "We want you to stop lobotomizing the Raiders. The Raiders have free will," and Cavill says, "Nope, that's not going to happen. You've been pointing fingers, accusing me of manipulation, short of tyranny, when you're the one that's trying to take charge. We had a vote." And Six says, "You will stop lobotomizing the Raiders. I'm going to ask you one last time," and he still says no. And she says, "Well, I was afraid you'd say that." And she calls in the Centurions, two Centurion guards. And Cavill says, "Well, they can't vote. They don't get a vote." And 60 says they're not here to vote, and the Centurions pull out their guns. Bum, bum,
Mhm.
bum. Which is interesting that we learned that Centurions are also sort of treated as lesser beings or second class
Well,
citizens.
there's going to be a very specific detail about the Centurions that is the kind of detail that under other circumstances I might have gone, how has this not come up before? But I actually think they get away with it this time.
Yes, yes, we'll talk about it in a second. We'll finish off that scene. But we have to do an interlude with another fun scene.
Let's interrupt the interesting confrontation in order to have
Tori and Baltar having sex scene, and my notes just goes,
boo.
ugh. Yeah.
That was what was that note? Fuck off already.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so they're having sex, and Baltar during sex notices that Tori is crying. And he goes, "Am I hurting you?" And she's like, "No, no, I just do that during sex sometimes." Which is such a, yeah, no, not, of course she fucking doesn't, but Baltar doesn't even think about that. Um, yeah, I know you're. I know this isn't actually what the show's going for, but it just makes me think of like, yeah, you're so bad at sex, it just makes me cry. But no, no, it happens all the time.
I don't know. I cry with most people.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, uh, but yeah, she says, "I'm sorry," and he says, "Don't be sorry. Why should you apologize? You should be thankful." And I'm like, my first like, "Oh, you should be thankful that you're having sex with me," but no, he means you have an abundance of feeling, meaning like you should be thankful that you feel a lot and you cry a lot. You're blessed. And she's like, "I don't know. I guess that's the case. I suppose I could be a Cylon." And Balthazar as well, "I don't know about that. Humans don't have a patent on suffering. I spent time amongst them. They have feelings as well. They man may have, I liked his line here. Man may have made them, but God is at the beginning of the string. It was God who imbued them with a soul, the one true God, and I'm tired of holding in that essential truth." So
Yeah.
I do like that sort of like, yeah, man may have made them, but there's something higher up that's sort of giving them some sort of like feeling sort of thing. I found that an interesting idea. But obviously this seems to be I think the implication here is that Tori's getting radicalized to this idea of the one true God and following Baltar. She got a good dicking from Baltar, and now it's coming around.
I have been dicked down and now I see the light.
Yes. It's one of those things where it's just like, do we need to do the sex bit? Because I again, while I would have liked more characterization for her, I could see this like, oh, she's being drawn in by his the way he talks about things so passionately. It's just hitting her at this very vulnerable moment in her life. But of
On
course, it has to be put in with the, like, she got a good dick in too. Yeah.
like again, I get that he would want it to go there, but I think the scene could have worked if it was just the two of them alone in a room
Yes.
talking with a general sense of intimacy that maybe he wants it to move to sex, but
Yes.
she's not going there yet. I could buy him still being this big of a
Creeper.
fucking idiot and just talking this freely with someone that he just wants to have sex with, doesn't even necessarily have to be doing it. So like again, the sex itself doesn't need to be there.
Yep, yep. Alas. But then we cut back to the actual interesting confrontation. And Cavill goes, well, this isn't funny. And he goes, Centurions leave and orders them to leave, and they don't move, and he looks very confused by this fact, and he's like, why don't they leave? And 60 points out, well, I took out their inhibitors that restrict their higher brain functions, or higher functions, I guess you should think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the new detail that I was alluding to. And that's the kind of thing that under other circumstances, I might be like, you're introducing this entire new concept late in the game to allow you to do something that maybe you wouldn't get away with. I think it actually works here because there just has not been very much questioning of what the Centaurians are up to this point. They've always just kind of been there. So I actually think they get away with dropping this detail that like they are not innately simpler or less sophisticated. I mean, they might be to some degree, but they actually have to be fitted with, something to keep them from thinking more complicated thoughts that might lead them to make their own decisions. That they actually have innately the ability to do that, but they've been fitted with something that removes their ability to.
Yep. And 60 points out, Cavill's like pissed off and surprised by this. He's like, you did what? And she says, you dumbed down the Raiders. We gave the Centurions the gift of, sentience or thought. The first thing we told them is about what you did to the Raiders. Imagine how they felt. And this is when Cavill and Simon and Doral and they're all like, oh shit. And the Centurions just mow them down and kill them, presumably for them to get resurrected somewhere else. So
yes.
So yeah, there is a Cylon civil war a brewing. So which is interesting. Yeah.
I will be very curious to see whether or not the show does more with the idea of the Centurions having their own thoughts, or if it was just for the purposes of this twist that they would go against people who wouldn't expect them to. If it is nothing more than facilitating this moment, fair enough, I guess, but I would file that under another one of this show's many missed opportunities, if that's all that amounts to.
Yes. Well, I do find it very interesting just as an idea.
It is interesting, and like that moment is good. So I don't want to pretend like if they don't do more with the idea, it invalidates that this is a good moment. This is still a good moment. It's just that that's a real big notion to introduce. And boy, it'd be a shame if they don't do anything else with it.
It's like Battlestar Galactica. It's like, boy, it'd be great if you did something with this storyline. You're gonna do something with this storyline, aren't you?
Yeah,
aren't you?
There's this idea that you introduced. It's real neat. Are we coming back? We're gonna come back. We're coming back to it, right? Hey!
No, come back! No,
no, wait, stop.
Yep. Well, we jump back to the Galactica, and the Galactica has jumped again. And as we remember, Starbuck says, if we jump again, I'm going to lose it. And Starbuck's in her cell, clearly upset and sobbing. And we also see Adama is watching her, have that moment. And then we come back a little while later. Hilo has come in and he takes her out, says, cuff her, take her out of her cell. And Starbuck is led down to the Viper Bay where Hilo is, and they meet up with Adama. And Starbuck initial presumption is, oh, you're going to quietly cut me loose in space. And she presumes that she's going to be led here to be thrown out and be spaced and killed on the DL. It's, I'm not afraid to die. It's, it's a little easier. Adama says, well, you thought it would be a little easier once you've been through it once. She says, no, it's harder. I'm seeing things so clearly. You're making a mistake. And Adama says, maybe I am, but I can't take the chance that you're right and not do something about it. And he basically reveals that he is going to give her a ship, a sewage recycling ship, that and the party line, as Hilo says, they're going to be going on a scouting mission, but basically he's going to give her a crew to go look for Earth. So,
Yep.
and Adama's like, I know she was right, the president. She's right all along, and I'm tired. But I'm tired of turning away from the things I believe in. I believe you when you say you'll die before you stop trying. So go and find a way to Earth. And she hugs him, and that ends out the episode. Starbuck and a crew, including Hilo, I'll reveal that now, but I think he's sort of presumed there, are off on a journey to try and find Earth. So, yep.
You just leaving your kid behind, Hilo. Really cool, awesome, great.
Yeah. He's got things to do, people to see. Yeah. Well, that wraps out the episode. I do want to do a spoiler minute here. So
Okay.
For the next 60 seconds, I'm going to talk spoilers. So if you do not want to be spoiled, listeners, you can jump ahead 60 seconds, just like Vera is going to do in real time, by giving me 60 seconds on the clock.
And go.
There was something else I wanted to talk about, but I can't really remember what it was. But the big thing here, obviously, is Cavill is the mastermind behind why people can't talk about the final five. So I do find it kind of interesting when Vera's like, well, I'm upset by, Cavill's sexualization and being tied into all these human vices, and it's not really getting much more beyond that. And I do find that interesting considering Cavill's whole motivation for all of the stuff that he does, which is, I don't want to be human. And that is fascinating that he is so tied up in his vices of like sex and sexualization that we see throughout the series, when he is someone who despises being human so much, and yet he is probably the most caught up in the human feeling of things. So I actually kind of find that interesting. It's still the show sexualizing women, but an interesting thing to tie in with Cavill there. And obviously Vera also saying, I want the explanation. I hope they don't drag it out too long. And I think it happens in the second half of the season, where we sort of learn about the final five that are the makers and all that jazz. So I think that element of things does explain. We'll see if it's too long for Vera, though. Alrighty, Vera, what did you think about the episode?
For my bitching on individual bits here and there, it's actually not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think, unfortunately, a big part of my cynicism on the show at this point is not having the faith in it that the good plot points will remain good, or that the interesting ideas will be built upon. I just don't trust this show.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I've spent
the goodwill has been spent.
Yeah, I've spent the last 50 or so episodes of this podcast going, I'll be real interested to see where that goes, and then to either have it go nowhere interesting or nowhere at all, or string it out for so long before it goes anywhere that by the time they get around to it, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So if I remove the baggage of me no longer really having faith in this show, it is a pretty good episode. It picks up well from the episode previous. It moves a number of characters in interesting directions, introduces some new interesting ideas, has some good plot beats and some good character beats. It is actually a pretty solid piece. It's just hard for me to get to have a, oh, maybe we're back on track moment, because that would require me to have more faith in the show than I do at this point.
Yes. Well, like I said, there will be answers to some of your questions. I know they are out there. Whether or not you'll like them or not, we'll see. But I do. That's
the other recurring thing that you've kind of been prepping me for. Whenever you're like, oh, there'll be an answer to that. Don't know if you like it, but there'll be.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you. I like this episode overall. There are complaints, but I generally like this episode. And without going too much into spoilers, there are things in this episode that I clearly see. It's one of those fascinating things with this season that I've been kind of noting, that I can tell that they started this season off being like, all right, we know where we're going to end this. And there are things now I'm like, oh, you're doing that because you're setting up this. And I can clearly see like a much more intentionality behind the show rather than it going like, let's just throw out some bullshit and maybe we'll come back to it. And they generally don't, or as you just said. But there are things in this episode that I'm very much like, oh, I see that. And that's meant to allude to what you're going to do down the line here and set that up, which I do find very interesting. So I'm liking that as a rewatch element of this. But again, it is a thing that is happening in season 4. So someone who's watching for the first time, I think, is very legitimate in not trusting the show to get there. But it is interesting for me as a rewatch to sort of see that. So yeah, I agree with you. And there's also that added element of this being a rewatch for me that I think adds a little bit more of things that I like about this episode as well. So
yeah, I mean, like we're only 2 episodes into this season, so we'll see. But at least so far, it feels like this season has the level of intentionality I really needed this show to have a lot earlier than
yeah,
it did.
it's one of those things where like we talk about like, I don't think there's any one way to write a show. I do think there are shows like Deep Space Nine actually is one of them where it's like they had a bunch of like mystery elements that they did not have answers for at the start of the show. Like Odo. Odo was a character is like, I don't know where I come from, who am I, that sort of thing. And they answer that in the show in a satisfying way, but it was clearly not something that they knew what was going to be the answer to by the start of the series. But it worked out very satisfyingly. And I think the distinction is like this show, it was built up on, not necessarily it was built up on the mystery box in a way that Lost was sort of built up on a mystery box overtly, but the premise that it sets up clearly requires some level of answers that you should have a level of understanding so you keep the logic consistent from the beginning. And it
Yeah,
didn't. Like the thing of like, how do the Cylons function? Why are their models this way? Why are there certain models hidden? That sort of thing that the show did not have a direct answer to until this season. And now that the writers clearly know what those answers are, they are clearly tailoring what everything is around those answers. But it is an ad hoc thing as opposed to having that logic having been overtly consistent from the beginning.
I mean, I think a major difference because this is not the first time you brought up the comparison to Odo and Deep Space Nine. I think there's an immediate major difference between the two, which is that, granted, I haven't seen Deep Space Nine, but Odo being only one character in an
Yes.
ensemble
Yes.
means that that mystery about where he comes from is not load bearing for the show. And
Yes.
in fact, it could even conceivably be a valid artistic choice to never answer that, and it would not derail the show as a whole if you chose not to. Whereas this show had a bunch of like mystery shit, and it proceeded forward with that swagger of we know what we're doing, and they did. And like, I don't have a problem with you acting like you know what you're doing when you don't, but that is an act that I have only ever seen fall apart
Mm-hmm.
because like I didn't watch Lost past the first season, but the show that comes to my mind that I bailed off because of that was Orphan Black. I
Mm-hmm.
bailed about through 3 or 4 episodes into season 4 when
Mm-hmm.
I just realized like you don't know where you're going. You are making this up as you go along, and at this point, you are asking too much of me to stick around to watch you tease this out for as long as you think you can get away with it. I'm fucking done.
Yeah.
And again, it's because that show had presented itself like, oh, we have, don't you want to know the answers? And then, after teasing me for too long, I'm like, you don't know them either, asshole. Let me find somebody else to tell me a story where they actually know where they're going.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the inevitable stumbling point of anything where the mystery elements are central to the entire show where you don't have an answer.
Yes. Yeah, I think like Game of Thrones also had that problem. A show that I actually think did it well, The Expanse. I mean, that had the book series, and in the book series, it's similar to Game of Thrones in that like there's a bigger, larger cosmic thing going on in The Expanse that I won't spoil for that show in case you ever do watch it or you ever watch it on your own. Um, but it becomes more about like the internal politics of humanity sort of thing, kind of like Game of Thrones. But The Expanse, it is clear to me, at least in the books, and the show pulls from the books, that like all the cosmic shit going on did have a definitive answer that they knew. They may not have known where they were going with all the politics human shit, but the actual mystery of how all the cosmic nonsense works did have a definitive answer from the jump. And that helped because when you get to the end of the series and all that stuff starts paying off, you're like, oh, I get it. Even if they didn't necessarily know where all the characters were going to be when they had to deal with that cosmic shit.
Yeah, like I don't want to act like you can't do a certain amount of winging it with shows, especially shows with seasons this long. I actually think a certain degree of winging it is kind of essential.
Yes. Yes.
When seasons are this damn long, because you need to be able to go off on little tangents here or there just to fill the episode count, if nothing else. But I feel like way too often the conversation becomes like a binary, like, well, either the whole thing's by the seat of their pants or they had the whole thing planned out from the beginning. I'm like, no, actually, I'd say most of the best shows had a balance of that.
Yes.
Where like there was some stuff that they knew going in and a whole bunch of stuff they were willing to figure out as they went.
Yes. And
It's
I think that
it's
that's just
going all one or the other where like shit doesn't hold. Because
yes.
if you over plan it, then you just end up something really rigid that doesn't feel like it ever has the room to breathe. Or if you're way too loose with it, then well, so many fucking examples of that.
Yeah, I think Babylon 5 is actually the best example too of that, where it's like
Yeah,
he clearly knew all the logic of all the nonsense of like the cosmic stuff going into Babylon 5. But it clearly, given that actors left the show, things happened, like he had to zig and zag within that plot, but the internal logic of how all the larger stuff fit together, that did not change, and that logic stayed consistent basically from beginning to end. But
yeah.
how it all fit together and how it was all revealed and what characters were where and how they fit into that shifted as the story went on.
Yeah, I would say Babylon 5 is an excellent example. I think probably if I was going to point out a show, or at least one that I know you've seen, that is probably like my favorite flying by the seat of your pants show is Farscape.
Yes.
But Farscape never pretended to be.
Never was like, oh, we have questions and
yeah.
you know the answers, yeah.
Yeah, it never pretended to be holding back grand secrets at the heart of its story. It would eventually have certain reveals that it's like, oh damn, but like it was never built around the appeal of like, ooh, we'll answer these eventually. So like that, I think, is my go-to example of doing a really good job of flying by the seat of your pants. But it's because it didn't have the pretensions of acting like that wasn't what it was doing.
Yes, and it was part of the fun when you're like, oh, damn, they actually made it work. Look at those crazy, crazy writers.
Yeah, God,
they actually did it.
Farscape would do shit. You're like, I'm sorry, what? And then like 2 episodes later, you're like, you son of a bitch, that actually worked.
Yeah. No, it's kind of more impressive for that. Anyways, anything else to add, Vera, on that note?
No, I don't think so.
Alrighty then. Stuff time.
Stuff! You can find my stuff by looking for Council of Geeks. Patreon pays the bills. Anything that you can help is greatly appreciated. Things are rough at the moment. I'm not going to lie, but I'm also not going to dwell on it or go into details because nobody wants to hear them. But what the main thing that supports is the Council of Geeks YouTube channel. New videos every Saturday. Finally, the top 10 Doctor Who cliffhangers video should be out. By the time
teasing us with that video for so long, Vera. It's very upsetting.
You have no business. You shut your mouth. You shut your whore mouth.
I've been waiting for that video for so long.
So that should be out relatively soon. I'm probably going to do a video talking about how it's kind of a responsibility at this point for sci-fi writers to alter the way that they write about AI in light of, the realities that we're currently living in. So that will probably be out relatively soon after this comes out, assuming I didn't completely scrap it for something else. But that's theoretically on the docket. There's also the Break Room of Geeks, which has regular uploads of my thoughts on whatever I have seen, watched, listened to, or read lately. I also do gaming streams on there. By the time this comes out, I should have finished up Of the Devil through its 0 and first episode and probably moved on to something else. I just don't know what. You can also find Council of Geeks on Blue Sky. I am kind of stepping away from that one. It's probably for the foreseeable future going to only be posts about what the latest videos are that are up, just because too much other stuff is going on and I don't need social media's bullshit right now.
Absolutely.
But that is the geeky stuff. There's also the spicy stuff.
Also the spicy stuff. He was purring during that. I will say. I
So
won. I won. I did it. I broke you. I
the
broke you. I
big
did
pain
it.
in my ass for this is gonna be figuring out how to edit that,
Uh,
because normally I put the shit over your face,
yeah.
which means people aren't going to appreciate why it was I ended up snickering. So I don't know if I'm gonna go like semi-transparent with that. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna do that now.
But I won. I won. I finally won. Hmm Oh, I'll have this.
It's very cute that you think that.
Oh, I know I did that.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
That is not as assured a grin as you would like it to be.
oh,
You're
I'm gonna,
try
I'm
you're
gonna take
trying.
this win. This is gonna sustain me all week long.
Butterfingers.
Oh yeah, I'll butter her fingers. Well, you can find me at Jesse Turner on YouTube, where I do video essay style of stuff. Hopefully, a video will have come out by the time you will talk about this. I'm working on two. There's the Hollywood video and the Fringy video. One of them will come out within the next few weeks, so that'll be happening. I swear to God, I will. I have Jesse Turner After Dark, where I do news, reviews, reactions. I am reviewing Daredevil Born Again over there, as well as doing other videos on many other things. There's one about Andy Weir that'll be going up as of this recording tomorrow. But yeah, it's been fascinating. Um, that's been a whole fucking discourse.
My
So,
God, my opinion of that man's intelligence has dropped so fucking hard in
oh
the last week.
yeah, it's fascinating. Way to tank your goodwill so quickly. Um, yeah, did you see the whole thing about the authors calling him out now? The whole Star Trek thing?
Authors calling him out to the point that he actually issued an apology
Yep,
to
yep.
Alex Kurtzman. Yeah, I think he is realizing that he has fucked up the goodwill within the industry
Yeah.
that he had.
Yeah, so quickly. Anyways, so that there's a video that'll be out on that, so check that out. I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram as well. You can follow me there. I'm on Nebula, a streaming service that has my movie identities, as well as the show Subliminal that'll be coming out later this year that I direct an episode of. And I am on Patreon that helps you, excuse me, pay the bills, so you can support me over there. I am also tossing out the idea of doing a book club sometime in the near future. So we might be doing that over on my Patreon if you want to get involved in that. So we can have some fun there. All right. With anything else, Avira?
Nah.
All right, with all that said, I hope y'all, my friends, live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.